I set down the roast. Hot platter, heavy, right in the center like always. Noelle clapped her hands. Everyone can. We take a second to thank my mom again for last week's brunch. Her croissants could be in bon appetit. The table chuckled politely. Her mother tilted her chin, modest and smug. I reached for the mashed potatoes, scooped, passed, smiled. Grant lifted his wine. To strong women, he said. Women who never needed a crutch. He looked around the table. Everyone followed. Then his gaze stopped on me, and to the ones who just never managed much of anything. He grinned. You're the most useless mother I've ever seen. Silence first. Then the laughter. Not mine. I felt my fork still in my hand midair, my knuckles white against silver. I lowered it slowly, swallowed nothing. Noelle wiped her mouth delicately. Oh, come on, Grant. Be nice. Her voice smiled. Her eyes didn't. Grant leaned back in his chair, pleased with himself. She knows I'm joking. Don't you, Mom? I nodded. Of course. He turned to his friend Mason beside him. My mom used to burn boxed macaroni. Seriously, I had to learn how to cook just to survive. Another round of laughter. Now look at her domestic goddess I got up to refill the gravy boat. No one offered to help. In the kitchen, I counted my steps. 8 to the sink, 4 to the stove. The clatter of silverware behind me dulled like underwater sound. Back at the table, the children played with their food. Noelle's mother asked about the cruise next spring. Mason commented on the wine. Grant poured himself another glass. I sat, ate in silence. The meal ended like it always did. I cleared the dishes while they drifted into the living room. Laughter, glasses clinking, a sports recap on TV. I washed every plate, dried every glass, wiped the crumbs from the placemats, folded the napkins into clean triangles, and placed them back into the drawer. I took the leftover roast, wrapped it, labeled it, slid it into the fridge behind Noelle's salad kits. When I turned around, a wine glass was left near the sink. Lipstick on the rim. Still full. I poured it out. Washed it too. Upstairs, the hallway light was off. I stepped quietly toward the guest room. The door didn't close all the way. The frame had been warped since they redid the floors. Grant kept saying he'd fix it. He didn't. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the floor for a long time. My hands folded in my lap. My fingers still smelled faintly of garlic and dish soap. No tears. Just a dull weight. Familiar. Heavy, but hollow. At midnight I got up, opened the closet, pulled down the lockbox I hadn't touched in 5 years. Inside papers, keys, folders, names. I clicked it shut and tucked it under the bed. The house was still. Somewhere Grant snored. I lay down, closed my eyes. The next morning, before anyone woke, I made coffee. Black. No cream, no sugar. Just the way I used to drink it before I forgot what I liked. I brought it to the porch, sat with the steam against my face, and planned nothing out loud. I scrubbed the casserole dish until the grease gave in, stacked it, dried the rim, set it on the rack, wiped the sink, reached for the next pan. Noelle's heels clicked across the kitchen tile. I didn't turn. She opened the fridge, took out oat milk, closed it harder than needed. Don't forget the patio cushions. It's going to rain later, she said. I nodded, kept scrubbing. She left without waiting for an answer. By noon, I'd folded 3 loads of laundry, vacuumed the hallway, watered the back plants, and swept dead leaves from the porch. I skipped lunch. They didn't ask. I found the chart that night. A single sheet of paper printed in color slipped under my bedroom door. Tidy grid. Days of the week. Blocks filled in with bright blue text. My name in bold at the top. Selma's weekly responsibilities. It listed Monday bathrooms, Tuesday vacuum and dust, Wednesday kitchen deep clean, Thursday, yard work. Friday, laundry. Saturday, guest linen rotation. Sunday, all-day meal prep at the bottom. Please sign below so we're all clear on expectations. Noelle's handwriting circled the deadline. By tomorrow, please. I signed it that night. No questions, no comments, just my name. The one they hadn't spoken with kindness in weeks. The next morning, I set breakfast out early. Grant liked toast on the darker side. Noelle wanted almond butter, not peanut. Her mother used to send jars with vanilla bean. I remembered. They didn't thank me. Noelle pointed to the calendar pinned near the fridge. We'll need the patio chairs wiped down before Saturday. Mason's bringing his fiancée. I want things to look nice. I nodded. Grant sipped his smoothie. Don't forget the back bathroom's been smelling weird. Maybe bleach the pipes or something. I nodded again. He laughed, kissed Noelle on the temple. I'll be late tonight. Listing tour in Mount Pleasant. Big client. She hummed approval. The door closed behind them. I washed dishes, cleaned counters, took out trash, bleached the back bathroom, wiped down the patio chairs until they shined. The dog barked at the window. The mail truck passed. I didn't check. Not until later. At 4 p.m., I walked down the driveway, opened the box, and pulled out 3 envelopes and a catalog. 2 bills. 1 postcard. The postcard was from Claire. Her handwriting hadn't changed. Just made it to Taos. Air's dry, but the coffee's strong. Wish you were here? I stood there for a long moment, then walked back inside. Put the postcard in the kitchen drawer under the scissors. At dinner, Noelle said the chicken was too soft. Grant scrolled through emails at the table. I cleared the plates. Later that night, I sat at the edge of my bed, the signed chart still on my nightstand. I folded it once, then again, tucked it into the drawer beside the lockbox, then opened my notebook and wrote down 1 sentence. Nothing agreed to in silence is ever mutual. I capped the pen, turned off the light, and dreamed of Claire's porch in New Mexico. I opened the trash lid. Rotten lettuce, a wet paper towel, cardboard packaging from Grant's protein bars, and my envelope. Cream-colored, torn at the corner, charred at the top. The flap was sealed with wax when I'd sent it to myself because Noelle once said she liked pretty mail. I thought the detail might soften her. It didn't. The edge was burned, not by accident. The wax seal was half melted, stuck to the back of a paper towel. They hadn't opened it. I pulled it out with 2 fingers. Dried it gently. Smoothed the crease. The card inside was still intact. Happy birthday, Selma. The gold script shimmered against the dark. Inside, I'd written in pen, grateful for another year. May it be lighter. I stared at the words for a long time, then folded it shut. I set it on my nightstand, right next to the signed housework chart. 2 pieces of paper, one meant to erase me, one they never cared to see. Grant never said a word about my birthday. Not the day before. Not the day after. Noelle posted 3 photos on Instagram that week. Her mother holding fresh peonies. A brunch table set for 12. A caption. She's everything I hope to be someday. I wasn't in the frame. I wasn't ever in the frame. That Friday, I heard her laughing on the phone. She's still here. What can I say? I'm not heartless. Pause. Then a sigh. She does the chores. It's fine. I didn't ask who she was talking to. I didn't interrupt. I baked banana bread. No one ate it. I packed it into foil, froze it, and labeled it Tuesday. That weekend, Noelle hosted book club. 12 women, all nails and gold bracelets. I prepared the snacks, cleared the dishes, stayed in the kitchen. One of them peeked in and asked, "Is that your cleaner?" She's so quiet. Noelle smiled. Family. No one asked more. I sat on the porch that night after they left. Picked at the label on my water bottle. The sky was soft gray. Streetlight flickering at the end of the block. Somewhere a door slammed. Then came Grant's voice through the open window. She'll be gone soon. Noelle's mom wants the space when she retires. We'll figure it out. I didn't move. I just watched the last corner of daylight slip behind the houses. Inside, I took the burned envelope from the trash, held it up to the lamp, then placed it in the lockbox, flat, pressed tight between the binder and the deed. Not because it was valuable, but because they'd tried to throw it away. I dusted the hallway shelf. The photo frame was empty. Just glass. No picture. I checked the next one, same. Third frame, blank. The wedding portrait had been removed. The one where I stood behind Grant, hand on his shoulder, gone. I walked the house quietly. The living room wall, bare spots where 4 8x10s used to hang. The side table, only Noelle's family, now her parents, in Martha's Vineyard. Her grandmother in Florida, her dog. Nothing of mine. Not even a school photo. Not even the one of Grant with a blue ribbon from his first spelling bee. I opened the drawer beneath the TV. There they were. Stacked. Neat. Rubber banded together like old receipts. My face facing down. I didn't say a word. That afternoon, Noelle hosted a small brunch. 6 guests. Real estate partners. Their wives. I poured coffee. Set down napkins. Smiled when spoken to. One woman gestured at the open layout. Such a warm space. Feels like generational wealth. Noelle laughed lightly. It is sort of. My family helped with the down payment. I turned toward the kitchen, hands steady. It was my house. Sold 2 years ago to help Grant get started. I watched as Noelle guided her guests to the den. We've always loved this place. Always felt like ours. No one questioned her. I brought out the lemon bars. Set them on the tray. Noelle didn't look up. Later, I passed by the hallway again. Grant's office door was cracked open. His voice came low and sharp. She's still here. I don't know what you want me to do. She has nowhere else. A pause. Because I can't just throw her out. Yet. I stood still. Heard papers shuffle. His voice dropped. I just need her signature. Once that's done, we'll figure the rest out. I backed away before he noticed. That night, I opened my own drawer, took out the folder labeled Original Deed, Selma Drayton. Under it, the account logins. I hadn't logged in for 6 months. I opened my laptop, entered the password, watched the numbers load. Still there. Still mine. I closed the laptop, slid it under the bed, then opened the envelope of stacked photos. Pulled out the one from Grant's 5th birthday. He was holding a yellow balloon, his cheeks full of cake. My mother's pearls around my neck. I was laughing. He was too. I placed it on my nightstand. Alone. The glass didn't match the rest of the house anymore. And I didn't intend to match anything either. I dragged the metal box out from the back of the closet. The corners scraped the floor. Dust clung to the handle. I set it on the bed. It hadn't been opened since I left the house I used to own. I fetched the key still taped to the inside of my old sewing kit behind the measuring tape and a rusted thimble. I peeled it free, slid it in. The lock clicked. Inside, everything was where I left it. Neat, dry, unbothered. On top, the deed to my old house. My name printed in bold, not Grant's, not Noelle's, just mine. The one they sold, the one I paid off, the one Grant called starter equity. I folded it back into its sleeve. Beneath it, a slim envelope with a faded blue logo. I opened it carefully. Joint account, Selma Drayton and Grant. Drayton opened the year he dropped out of grad school. Said he just needed a little financial help to get things moving. I checked the date of the last transaction. 2009. I logged into the online portal on my laptop, typed in the routing number, entered the PIN I hadn't used in over a decade. It still worked. Balance $41,703. I stared at it for a long time. The numbers didn't shake. He never asked about it again after he got back on his feet. He never closed it. He probably forgot it existed. I didn't. At the bottom of the box under tax returns and clipped receipts, I found the last envelope. Legal stationery. Notarized. Dated 6 years ago. Durable power of attorney. Prepared, but never executed. My name typed across the top. Grant listed as successor agent. The signature line still blank. Noelle had asked about it once. Just for security, she said. If something ever happened. Wouldn't want delays with decisions. I'd nodded, filed it away, and never brought it out again. I placed the 3 items on the bed. The deed I once owned. The money he never earned. The authority he thought he already had. 3 parts of a life they thought they controlled. I didn't smile. I didn't cry. I just laid them flat. Then stood over them, steady breathing. Downstairs, I heard the sound of cabinet doors. Noelle humming faintly. Grant on the phone. I took a new folder from the drawer, labeled it in pencil. Contingency slid everything inside, locked it, filed it deep in the nightstand. Then I poured myself a glass of water, sat on the edge of the bed. No music, no headlines. Just silence. But this time, it wasn't theirs. I packed the lunch myself. Turkey sandwich, no tomato. A thermos of hot soup. 2 sugar cookies wrapped in wax paper. Grant liked homemade when it was convenient. I figured today it would be. I took the bus downtown, walked 2 blocks to the glass building with his firm's name in gold lettering. Reception nodded as I passed. They still remembered me from the open house they hosted last year. I'd brought lemon bars. Noelle hadn't touched them. His secretary looked up from her desk. Oh, Selma, he's on a call. But you can leave that in his office if you like. I nodded. Set the bag down gently. She leaned forward, smiling, conversational. He mentioned the Mount Pleasant listing closed. Congrats. He said it used to be your house. I turned my head. My house. Yes, he said the deal's almost finalized. Buyer's already signing. Said it was a family transfer or something. I kept my face still. She kept talking. I think he said something about retroactive rights or title exception. I'm not sure. I just file the paperwork. I smiled. Just enough. Well, I said softly. He always had big ideas. She laughed. That he does. I stepped back. Thanked her. Walked out. My heels clicked on the polished tile steady slow. At the corner, I turned right instead of left. Sat down on the bench facing the city courthouse. The breeze caught the edge of my coat. My house. My name was on the original deed. The one still in my nightstand. The one they hadn't asked about. The one they thought I'd forgotten. He'd promised it. To someone. Maybe Mason. Maybe Noelle's parents. Maybe one of the buyers who flashed cash too easily. It didn't matter. He gambled with something that was never his to offer. I pulled out my notebook. Wrote 1 sentence. Promise nothing you didn't earn. Then I crossed it out. Wrote they never asked who still held the key. When I got home, the house was empty. Noelle's shoes were gone. Grant's car still at the office. I went upstairs, opened the lockbox, checked the documents again. Still there. Still untouched. Still mine. I made coffee. Sat in the kitchen with the steam against my face and drafted a new letter. 1 name at the top. Claire. Noelle raised her glass. We couldn't have done this without Mom, she said, grinning across the table. 12 guests. Charcuterie laid out like a magazine spread. Candles flickering along the granite island. I stood by the sink, still wearing my apron. Her support made this remodel possible. Noelle continued. Every detail hers. Her taste, her generosity, her belief in us. Her mother smiled, flattered, brushing a hand through her highlighted hair. Well, you two had the vision. I just said yes. Applause. A few heads turned to admire the recessed lighting, the double ovens, the custom wine rack. None of them knew the check came from my retirement fund. None of them knew I signed the transfer form the day after Noelle told me the downstairs bathroom's just not livable anymore. I'd agreed too quickly, too quietly. Now here I was, invisible in my own kitchen. Someone tapped a fork against a wine glass. Grant raised his voice to the woman who believed in us before anyone else. More clapping. I turned back to the dishes. Hot water. Soap. My hands moved automatically. No one looked in my direction. Later, after the guests left, I stacked plates. Noelle changed into flats and wiped down the counters like she was the one who'd cooked. Grant patted her shoulder. "Your mom really came through for us," he said. Noelle smiled. "Always." They went upstairs, laughed about something, closed the bedroom door. I sat at the kitchen table, pulled out my laptop, logged into my banking. The wire transfer was still there, labeled clearly, withdrawal, personal IRA, household remodel. Authorized by me, signed, dated. 2 months ago. Noelle hadn't even hesitated. She'd sent the form to my email with the subject line, "For the house we all share." She never mentioned that the credit would go elsewhere. I clicked Download Statement. Saved it to a folder titled Records, Private. Then I opened a blank note. Typed, "They spent my savings to raise her name." Then added, "Next time they'll spend something they can't afford to lose." I didn't close the laptop. I opened another tab and searched revoking financial permissions. Adult child. I said it casually between bites of toast. "I've been thinking. Maybe it's time I move into my own place." Grant looked up mid-chew. "Move out?" I nodded. "A smaller place. 1 level. Maybe by the lake." He dropped his fork. "You'd never survive alone," he said. "You'd forget to take your meds. You'd fall. You can't even carry a full laundry basket." Noelle didn't lift her eyes from her phone. She couldn't even figure out the new coffee machine without us. I sipped the coffee I had made myself. "I'd manage," I said. Grant scoffed. "You're not thinking straight. You've been too dependent for too long." Noelle finally looked up. "Selma, you don't need a place. You need structure. This is structure." I nodded once. "You're probably right." I stood, carried my plate to the sink, washed it, dried it, wiped the counter. Then I walked upstairs, opened my laptop, and booked the consultation. Private, off-site, end of the week. It wasn't the first time I'd considered leaving, but this was the first time they'd given me permission. I didn't need it, but it made the timing easier. That afternoon, I collected my mail from the shared bin. 3 letters. 1 from the bank, 1 from Social Security, 1 from a small property management office in Asheville. I smiled. It had arrived sooner than expected. The folder inside was thin. 1 sheet. A list of available 1-bedroom units, each with ramps, low counters, and private entries. Not sterile, not clinical, just quiet. Later, I folded laundry in the upstairs hallway. Grant passed me without a word. Noelle called from the other room. "Don't forget about Mason's dinner Saturday. Can you be ready by 5? "I'll be ready," I said. I stacked their towels, placed them gently on the shelf. Rolled mine tighter, set it apart. Upstairs, I placed the Asheville sheet into the folder with the bank statements and deed copy. Then I opened the notepad in my drawer, added a new entry, trial balloon launched, response predictable. Underneath it, I wrote, "Next move, call Claire." And below that, in small, sharp letters, "Begin the separation." I cleared a drawer in my nightstand, removed old receipts, birthday cards, photos no one had asked about in years. Then I placed the red binder inside, bought it new, firm spine, no patterns, just red, the color of warning. I labeled it in bold black letters, "Control, first page monthly withdrawals." I printed them all. Highlighted every transfer linked to the remodel. Every gift I didn't know I'd given. Second tab, power of attorney. Original copy, notarized. Untouched. Still in my name. Still unsigned. I added a sticky note, never filed. Third house documents, deed copies, appraisal forms, insurance history. My name circled in ink, their names absent. Fourth tab, Grant. This one took longer. I printed his emails. The one where he forwarded a list of repairs to his coworker bragging, "The place will appraise high now, thanks to my mother-in-law." I highlighted the sentence 3 times, then added the text chain between him and Noelle. Grant. Once she's out, we can finish the top floor. Noelle. She's too proud to leave. Just give it a month. I stared at that one. No timestamp needed. I printed it anyway. Slipped it behind a divider. Then came the utilities. The Amazon orders. All using my linked card. I didn't confront them. I just printed, filed, labeled. Behind the last tab, I slid the small white envelope, the one from Asheville. My name on the front. Housing offer inside. I added a final sheet steps to execute upon departure. 4 bullet points. Cancel auto payments. Freeze joint account. Reassign POA to Claire. Deliver binder to attorney. I didn't lock it, didn't hide it. I just kept it in reach. That night, Noelle tapped on my door. Dinner tomorrow. Can you make your shepherd's pie? I turned the page in my book. Of course. She smiled. Mason's bringing someone new. You always make it look so welcoming. I nodded. After she left, I closed the book, slid the binder an inch closer to the edge of the drawer, and left the drawer slightly open. I opened Grant's laptop to print a recipe. He'd left it on the counter logged in. I clicked too fast muscle memory. A folder opened audio files. Most were labeled by date. No descriptions. I almost closed it. Then one caught my eye. Final plan recording M4A. I pressed play. First few seconds static. Then voices. Grant's. Low. Tense. She won't question it if it looks routine. Noelle replied sharp. Just make her sign. Once it's in your name, she's out. I stood still. Grant again. She's suspicious. Then be charming. Noelle snapped. Smile. Make it look like it's for her benefit. Silence. Then the clink of a glass. Grant sighed. It's her house. Noelle. Not for long. I stopped the playback. The cursor blinked, waiting. I didn't hesitate. Pulled the small thumb drive from my keyring. Copied the file. Made 2 more copies. 3 drives total. One I slipped into a padded envelope addressed to my attorney in Charleston. No note, just the drive. The second I mailed to Claire. Return address a P.O. box, no name. The third I slid into the side pocket of my purse. That night at dinner, Grant was unusually polite. Pulled out my chair. Poured my water. Mom, he said I was thinking maybe we should go over some of the property stuff this weekend. I smiled. Of course. Noelle passed me the bread basket. You've always been so generous. We just want to help keep things easy. I buttered a roll. I appreciate that. They kept talking about shared ownership, updating documents, avoiding future confusion. I nodded, said little. After dinner, I loaded the dishwasher, listened to them in the living room, laughing, planning, their words casual practiced. I stepped outside, felt the air cool against my face, reached into my purse, touched the drive. Their plan had a name now, a timestamp. Voices. I didn't cry, didn't panic. I went back inside, turned off the kitchen lights, and walked upstairs to finalize the timeline. I pressed the elevator button twice. Mitchell Ware's office was on the 12th floor. Quiet building, no receptionist in the lobby, just a locked glass door and a bell I didn't ring. He opened it himself, older than Grant, calmer. Wore a navy tie, but not the smug kind. We shook hands. Selma Royce, he asked. Yes. Let's go to the back. His office was plain. One bookshelf. A window facing the courthouse. No degrees on the wall, just a framed photo of a trout stream. I handed him the thumb drive first. He plugged it in, listened with wireless earbuds, didn't blink, just nodded once, then twice. Who else has this? He asked. 2 people. He leaned back. Good. Then we started. First, we voided the old power of attorney. He slid the paper toward me. I signed it with a steady hand. Second, we drafted a new will. I dictated every line. Claire gets the cottage in Highlands. Mason the lake photo album. Everything else liquid assets accounts the house into a charitable trust name withheld. Mitchell didn't ask why, just nodded. Kept writing. Next, we delinked the shared accounts. He made the calls in front of me, gave them my direct line, froze access, reissued new cards to my name only. The banker's voice on speaker said, "Ma'am, do you authorize this change?" "I do," I said. One by one, the ties snapped. Grant's name gone from the home equity line. Noel's email removed from utility alerts. Their lifelines disappeared while they thought they were in control. Last, we filed 2 formal reports, 1 misappropriation of retirement funds, 2 pending elder financial coercion, not to press charges yet, but to create a paper trail. I signed everything, initialed every margin. Mitchell sealed the folder. Would you like copies mailed to a third party? Yes. He took the addresses. No questions. I stood, shook his hand again. Pleasure, Ms. Royce. I smiled. Thank you. He walked me to the elevator. The door closed on his quiet nod. In the lobby, I passed a couple arguing about divorce terms. I kept walking. Outside, the wind picked up. My scarf blew loose. I didn't fix it. At the corner, I stopped for coffee. Black. No cream. I paid with the new card. No link. No trail. I took the cup, walked to the bench across from the library, and sat in the sun. The lid clicked as I peeled it open. Steam rose. My hands didn't shake. I'd signed 12 documents in 40 minutes, and each one pulled me further from their grip. I took one sip, then opened my purse, took out the red binder, and slid the newest copies in smooth and quiet. I signed the transfer form in blue ink. Mitchell slid the documents back across the desk. It's done. My name alone. Not joint, not shared, not accessible. The trust now held the deed, the accounts, the inheritance from my parents, the land in Maine no one ever asked about. I asked for one condition: to remain Grant stays as a beneficiary, but only if he meets the terms I added on page 3. Mitchell raised an eyebrow at the clause. I said nothing. He initialed it. So did I. One sentence. Quiet but sharp. All distributions conditional upon personal contact, active caregiving, and presence at time of passing. No proxy. No apology letter. No second-hand regret. He either shows up or he doesn't. And if he doesn't, Claire gets it all. I slid the documents into the red binder. The folder clicked shut. When I got home, Grant was in the kitchen asking about lawn care bills. We should set up autopay again, he said. Sorting envelopes. I stirred the soup. You already did, didn't you? He grinned. Well, yeah, makes it easier on you. I nodded. Thanks. I added salt. Watched him toss a bill into the drawer where he kept the keys. That account was already frozen. The bills wouldn't autopay. And he'd find out next week when the card declined in the garden center. Noelle breezed in after that, still on a call, barefoot, holding a wine glass. She kissed Grant's cheek, opened the fridge, and said over her shoulder, Hey, Selma, next weekend, we might host Mason's team. Can we pull from the grocery card? Of course, I said. She smiled. You're a lifesaver. I returned to my room after dinner, locked the door, opened my laptop, checked the trust balance. Secure. Then I opened the copy of the letter Mitchell drafted just in case anything went wrong. One envelope addressed to Grant, another to the trust executor. Neither mailed. They'd sit in the back of the binder. Insurance, not warning. The kind of silence that isn't fear, just control. That night, Grant handed me the remote and said, "Want to pick the movie for once I picked a documentary." He lasted 10 minutes. Noelle went upstairs. I stayed until the credits rolled. When the room emptied, I folded the blanket neatly, set it on the couch, and turned off the light. The binder was in the drawer. The purse sat zipped, and not one word had to be spoken. Noelle cornered me at the sink. 20 people Thursday. Mason's colleagues. You'll handle it. I wiped my hands. Looked at her reflection in the window. Of course, I said. She smiled. Perfect. I knew I could count on you. I wrote a list that night. Not groceries, not recipes, just names of the dishes they expected me to make. Then I opened my laptop and scheduled a wire transfer. Quiet. Large enough to remind me I could. The bank confirmed within seconds. Funds moved to the trust. Untouchable. Thursday came heavy. I chopped onions before sunrise, peeled carrots, marinated chicken, baked rolls, stirred soup, wiped sweat from my forehead with the back of my arm. Noelle stopped by twice, checking progress like a manager on rounds. Plates need to be uniform, she said. Yes, dear. Don't forget Mason's vegetarian friends. Yes, dear. She never noticed my tone. By 6, the house filled with voices, laughter, glasses clinking, the kind of warmth I once thought meant family. I stayed in the kitchen, serving, smiling, clearing plates before anyone asked. They barely looked at me except when Noelle announced, "Isn't she wonderful?" Couldn't have done it without her. Her mother smiled wide, soaking in the borrowed praise. I carried out dessert. Small cakes lined neatly on a silver tray. They applauded Noelle's taste again. She bowed her head. Just a little effort. I poured coffee, poured more wine, collected empty cups. The dishwasher hummed long after midnight. By the time the last guest left, I was still smiling. Grant clapped me on the shoulder. See, Mom? You're good at this. You have purpose here. I dried my hands. I'm glad to help. They went upstairs. Doors closed, laughter muffled by walls. I returned to the kitchen, turned off the lights, then climbed the stairs with quiet steps. In my room, the binder waited. I opened it, slid in the bank confirmation printout, tucked it behind the divider labeled Trust Transfers. I closed the binder, rested my hand on it. Downstairs, I could still hear faint echoes of their party. Their voices, their clinking glasses, their borrowed joy. I set the binder back in the drawer and picked up my pen to write the next step. I carried the frosted cake into the dining room, 12 seats set, gold chargers, crystal glasses, name cards at every place, candles lit down the center like a runway. No card with my name. I stood there holding the cake. Noelle clapped. Perfect timing. Bring it here. She leaned closer, lowered her voice. Selma, we only reserved 12. You understand, right? The kitchen's quieter anyway. I nodded, set the cake down, smiled at her guests, slipped back through the swinging door. The kitchen smelled of roast and champagne. I sat at the small table near the recycling bin. My plate waited there, pasta salad bread crusts, balanced on a paper napkin. Through the doorway, I heard laughter. Toasts. Noelle's voice, bright, proud, commanding every eye. Her mother raised a glass. To Noelle, the daughter every mother dreams of. Applause. I chewed my bread slowly, looked at my hands, still faintly dusted with flour from rolling dough all morning. They didn't clap for that. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A draft email waiting. Subject line binder backup. I opened it. Attached the latest scans withdrawals trust confirmation the recording transcript. Addressed to Claire, addressed to Mitchell. One more check, one more glance. Then I pressed send. The whoosh was quiet. Final. In the dining room, the party roared louder. Someone called for music. Someone poured more champagne. Noelle laughed like she owned every sound. I sat alone eating scraps in the kitchen with proof now safe in 2 inboxes. I wiped my mouth, folded the napkin neatly, and placed it under the empty plate. Then I stood, washed my dish, dried it carefully, and left it in the rack. Upstairs, the red binder waited its drawer half open. I set down my fork. The table gleamed under sunlight from the tall windows. Silver-polished napkins folded into perfect triangles. Noelle's mother sat at the head, proud, beaming over quiche and fruit bowls. Grant laughed too loudly at a story Mason told. Noelle topped off glasses, her bracelets clinking. Their world looked staged, curated, spotless. I stood slowly, lifted my glass. Before dessert, I said I'd like to offer a toast. Chairs shifted. Faces turned toward me. Noelle's smile froze at the edges. Grant's eyes narrowed. Thank you, I began steady. For your hospitality. For the food. For the welcome. I paused. Let the quiet fill. Then I reached into my purse, slipped out a folded sheet, unfolded it with both hands. My voice stayed even. This is a transcript from a conversation recorded in this very house. The words landed heavy. Noelle's mother tilted her head, confused. Mason's fork stopped midair. I read. Just make her sign. Once it's in your name, she's out. A ripple went around the table. Grant muttered. Mom, I continued. She's suspicious. Then be charming, smile, make it look like it's for her benefit. Someone gasped softly. Noelle's face flushed. She reached for her glass hands, trembling. I folded the page once more, set it on the tablecloth like a card played in a game already won, and yet I said, voice low, sharp, they called me useless. The silence grew thick. No one moved. Even the chandelier above seemed to still. Grant's jaw tightened. Noelle pressed her lips into a smile that didn't hold. I raised my glass again. To family, I said. Then I drank. Slow, unhurried. When I lowered the glass, I saw the panic start in their eyes, and I knew the room would never feel the same again. The phone rang before I even set down my coat. Grant's voice cracked through the line, sharp and ragged. What did you do? I let the question hang. He barreled on. Donovan pulled out this morning. The investment's gone. My license, it's under review. They said complaints were filed, anonymous detailed. Mom, did you? I cut in calm. Read the email. He sputtered. What email? The one I sent you. The one sitting in your inbox right now. Silence. The sound of papers rustling, keys tapping. Then a sharp intake of breath. You documented everything. His voice was low, almost a whisper. Every withdrawal. Every signature you tried to slip under my hand. Every conversation you thought stayed inside your walls. I walked into my kitchen. Set the kettle on. My hands didn't shake. Mom, it's not what you think he said. Words tumbling now. We were planning to secure your future. That's all. Victoria thought. Stop. I leaned against the counter steady. You can say her name 100 times. It won't shift the weight of your own choices. He exhaled hard, like he'd been punched. Do you know what you've done? Do you know how this looks? Yes, I said. It looks true. The kettle whistled. I poured water over grounds, the smell of coffee rising, slow and strong. Grant's voice broke again. Mom, you've ruined me. I stirred once, metal spoon against ceramic. No. I simply stopped letting you ruin me. The line went quiet. I heard him breathing, quick and uneven. Then softer, almost pleading. What do you want? I took a sip. The bitterness steadied me. You'll know soon enough. And I hung up. The quiet in the room was different now. Not empty. Charged. A silence I owned. I set the cup down, reached for the folder waiting by the door. It was time to make my next move. The knock came just after dusk. Soft at first, then sharper, insistent. I didn't move. Let her knock again. Selma Noel's voice wavered, thinned by what she thought sounded like grief. Please, we need to talk. I opened the door just enough to see her face. Mascara smudged lips trembling in practiced quivers. She clutched a scarf around her shoulders like she'd come from mourning. I made mistakes, she whispered, but we can rebuild. Families do that. We can start over. Her eyes searched mine, waiting for softness, waiting for a crack she could crawl into. I didn't give her one. Instead, I reached to the side table, picked up the envelope already waiting, held it out between us. She hesitated, then took it with both hands as though I'd passed her something fragile. What is this? She asked, voice still trembling. A mirror, I said. And I shut the door. Her footsteps lingered in the hall. Then the sound of paper tearing open. Silence. Then the muffled gasp. Inside the envelope, a clean, final notice. The legal severance. Removal of all shared authority. Every tie cut. Every obligation dissolved. Noel knocked once more, harder this time. You can't. I turned the lock. Walked back to my chair. Sat down with my coffee still warm. The knocking faded. Then nothing. Through the window, I watched her leave the building, clutching the envelope to her chest like it burned. The room was quiet again. And in that quiet, I breathed easier. I glanced at the second folder on my desk, the one not yet delivered. I pulled the boxes from the closet and set them on the counter. No one came to help. No one asked if I needed tape or bags or space to work. The house was full of footsteps, but not for me. I moved quietly, one drawer at a time. I folded linens, wrapped plates, slid books into cartons, the spines pressing against each other like soldiers lined for departure. Every sound was small, the scrape of tape, the dull thud of cardboard filling. Grant passed the doorway once. He looked in, said nothing, kept walking. Noel didn't appear at all. I didn't call for either of them. I carried my life in pieces. The framed photo from the side table. The wool throw I'd brought from my old house, the battered recipe box with corners softened from years of use. Each item went into its place, cushioned, labeled, marked as mine. The silence grew heavier as the kitchen emptied. Cabinets shut with echoes. The refrigerator door creaked wider with each shelf I cleared. Jars I had bought, containers I had filled, left behind. Only one thing mattered. On the top shelf, pushed to the back, sat my mug. White porcelain chipped handle, a faint ring of coffee staining the bottom. I reached for it, steady and slow. It was the last thing I removed. I cradled it in both hands, holding it like a piece of myself they never noticed. Noel had her stemware. Grant had his whiskey tumblers. I had this. I placed it in a padded sleeve, slid it into the final box, and sealed the carton shut. The tape hissed as it pressed down, the sound of an ending written in adhesive. When I turned back, the kitchen was bare. Counters gleamed cold and impersonal. No scent of garlic, no steam from a pot, no trace that I had ever stood there day after day with my hands in hot water, my back bent over dishes, my breath steady against the rhythm of their demands. The emptiness was absolute. I took off my apron, folded it once, and laid it across the counter. A flag of surrender that wasn't surrender at all. The door closed behind me, and the boxes waited by the stairwell. One trip at a time, I carried them down. I placed the box in the center of the dining table, small square wrapped in blue paper I had folded with care. The kind of wrapping meant for birthdays, graduations, holidays. The kind that said gift. But it wasn't a gift. It was a record. I set it between the chairs where Grant and Noel always sat, their wine glasses still on the table from last night, their laughter still echoing in corners they thought were theirs. I slid the ribbon tight, smoothed the fold with my palm. Inside, under the lid, lay one sheet of paper, a deed. My name printed in clear black letters. The house theirs in imagination, only mine in fact. On top of the paper, I placed the note. You should have learned how much I gave before you tried to take it. I stood there a moment longer, looking at the neat little box against the polished wood, imagining their faces. Grant first, his frown deepening as he read. Noelle next, her smile, stiffening eyes darting for an exit. They would understand then, not with arguments, not with shouting, with proof. The room smelled faintly of coffee and lemon cleaner. Morning sun stretched across the table, lighting the box as though it were staged. It looked almost innocent, a present waiting to be unwrapped. But I knew better. I turned away, picked up my last bag from the hallway. My purse rested on top, heavier than before, holding the single USB drive I had kept for myself, the final safeguard. My shoes clicked softly against the floor as I walked out, leaving the house behind. The door shut, not slammed, just closed with a click that echoed louder than any fight we'd ever had. The box remained on the table, waiting. I carried my bag down the steps, the air sharp and cool against my face. The cab pulled up, trunk already open. I lifted the bag inside, slid into the back seat, and gave the driver an address that wasn't theirs. The house behind me shrank as the car rolled forward. The blue box stayed behind. I dragged the chair closer to the window. The city spread beneath me, rooftops stacked like folded cards, streets glinting under early light. My mug rested on the sill, steam rising in steady ribbons. Black coffee. Nothing added. Nothing softened. The folder lay open beside me. Papers stacked, clipped, sealed. My name bold on every page. My signature sharp at the bottom. The red binder, its weight familiar, sat closed. The story it carried was finished. I leaned back, wrapping both hands around the mug. The heat seeped into my skin, the kind that grounded me in the present, not in yesterday's bruises. For the first time in years, there was no clatter of footsteps outside my door. No voices rising, no instructions barked, just silence. I thought of the box I'd left on the dining table. The ribbon cut, the deed unfolded, the note read. I pictured their silence different from mine. Their silence would be jagged, heavy, the kind that pressed down because there was no way out. Mine was lighter, chosen. I sipped slowly, the bitterness sharp, steady. Each swallow was a reminder I wasn't erased. I was still here, stronger for the years they thought I was weak. The chair creaked as I shifted, setting the mug down. My reflection caught in the glass. Hair, silver eyes, clear mouth, not smiling, but not bowed either. Just set. Steady. The phone on the counter blinked with missed calls. I didn't move toward it. Not today. Maybe not ever. This morning was mine. The chair, the mug, the binder closed. I breathed in the stillness deeper than I had in years and let it fill every part of me as the light climbed higher across the window pane.